Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please let's go to the headlines.
The desperate search for the missing in Central Texas and harrowing tales of survival.
Daddy, are we gonna die? And
They say that?
yeah, absolutely. And
They said that.
oh yeah.
The CBS Evening News starts now. Good evening, I'm Maurice Dubois in Ingram, Texas. Mary Grace Baker was just 8 years old, just finished second grade, and was attending Camp Mystic about 12 miles southwest of here. She loved to put bows in her hair, so when Mary Grace disappeared in the flood, her school, St. Anne's in Beaumont, asked neighbors to hang ribbons in her honor. Well, today the school announced that her body has been found. She was among the latest of the victims to be recovered. The count of the dead now totals at least 110, including 27 children and counselors from the camp. And late today, the governor announced at least 161 people are missing. That is a big increase from earlier estimates, and it could push the number of dead dramatically higher because there's not been a single live rescue in 4 days now. And survivors, they are just beginning to come to grips with all that's been lost. Kyle Ames is picking up the pieces of his life after the Guadalupe River came crashing into his home in Ingram, Texas, early Friday morning.
I just hear off the distance. There's water in the house. Daddy, there's water in the house. Yeah, I stepped down and it's above my knee. And it took me a minute to process.
Ames, a father of two boys, says when he stepped out of bed, the water was already at his knees. Less than 10 minutes later, it was up to his waist.
They were thinking, Daddy, are we gonna die? And
Did they say that?
yeah, absolutely. And
They said that.
oh yeah.
I mean, this is the water line. With the water quickly rising to their necks, his girlfriend Hannah and mother Cindy said they had to get to the roof, and only Kyle could lift them all up there.
I was like, all right, I'm gonna go underneath. She put her feet on my shoulder, and I lifted her up, and I helped her get the rest of the way up there. I can't even. It just happened so quick, and it's just instant.
Their dog, Remy, was still in the water. Ames had to dive underwater to get to him.
If you're like me, a dog's part of your family, of course. And I couldn't sit there up on the roof thinking that she's drowning in here.
You proud of your dad?
The violent assault on law enforcement, particularly border enforcement, has become out of control, a threat environment that has literally never existed. Look in just the last few days. On Saturday in Portland, Oregon, the ICE facility there has been constantly under violent attacking the officers on a near daily basis. Saturday really got out of hand. But let's go to Friday, July 4th. In Alvarado, Texas, you had 10 individuals now charged with attempted murder of a federal immigration official because they fired more than 20 to 30 shots from an assault rifle while wearing body armor. Now, these are just in the last 3 days. It's all part of a disturbing trend supported by DHS data, which you can see here. Almost 100 last year. Joining us now to discuss Chris. With you, we covered the last 4 years, but now we seem to be in an environment that has never been more dangerous for Border Patrol agents or ICE officers. Why do you think we're here? Why does this exist? Why isn't more being done to stop it?
Well, good morning, Griff. And it's a tough topic to talk about when you're talking about loss of life, because there's no law enforcement agent or officer that ever wants to take somebody's life, but they're trained to do so if necessary. I have to say a lot of this has to do with the left-wing propaganda, the stuff you hear from Democratic leaders, some of the mainstream media. All they're saying, talking bad about immigration enforcement. And the incident that happened yesterday is a prime example of when you mess around, you find out. Border Patrol agents are trained to run to the sound of gunfire. You don't come to a Border Patrol facility and think you're going to get out, scot-free. What happened yesterday is unfortunate. It shouldn't happen. And the media, the Democratic leadership that are anti-immigration enforcement need to tone it down, or unfortunately some of these things are going to continue, because you got people that are just falling into this propaganda, wanting to make martyrs of themselves. I mean, we'll get more of the background on this individual, but Call of Duty has a reset button.
On this Tuesday night, 4 men, including 2 military members, hit with terrorism charges.
The 4 individuals that we arrested were definitely anti-authority, anti-government.
What police say the group was plotting, the large cache of weapons they seized, and fears far-right extremists are gaining momentum. Sounding the alarm, the criticism Texans were not properly warned about an impending disaster. A so-called humanitarian city.
It's a crime against humanity.
Israel's plan to confine all Palestinians to one camp. Plus, blind ambition.
Very positive, though.
A Canadian teenager's creation to help people with their eye health.
National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. 4 men in Quebec, including 2 active members of the Canadian Armed Forces, have been arrested and charged with planning to forcibly seize land near Quebec City and form an anti-government militia. Police say the men had stockpiled weapons, ammunition, and tactical gear and were preparing to facilitate terrorist activity. Police describe it as an act of ideologically motivated violent extremism. Taria Isri has our top story tonight.
Military-style training, a cache of explosives, and dozens of firearms. RCMP evidence in an alleged domestic terrorism plot.
The individuals that were charged with the terrorism offense were trying to seize land in the Quebec City area.
A small group of men from the Quebec City area, including 2 active members of the Canadian Armed Forces, are accused of trying to start an anti-government militia. They allegedly used social media to attract new members and trained in Quebec and Ontario.
In this case specifically, Instagram was used and for recruitment, and the recruiting was specifically for people that either had an interest or knowledge about firearms.
RCMP say the alleged activities began in 2021. They were tipped off in the spring of 2023 and raided properties early last year. They discovered 16 explosive devices, 83 firearms, 11,000 rounds of ammunition, and other military equipment. Marc-Aurel Chabot, Raphaël Lagacé, and Simon Auger-Audet have been charged with facilitating terrorist activity, while a 4th man, Matthew Forbes, has been charged with possession of firearms and explosives. They appeared in court Tuesday afternoon by video link.
The Crown objected to the release of the suspect. The infraction of terrorism has a maximum of 14 years of imprisonment.
Over the last few years, Canada's spy agency has warned far-right extremist organizations are actively recruiting past and present military members. It's not clear what ideology motivated the suspected militia members.
Today, dozens of Palestinians killed and ceasefire talks faltering, while Netanyahu vows to continue the war until his goals are achieved.
Gaza must have a different future, for our sake, for everyone's sake. And no country will settle for less. We certainly will not.
The country's largest private childcare operator to install CCTV in all its centres in the wake of child sex abuse allegations in Victoria. The Treasurer reiterates the pharmaceutical benefits scheme is not up for negotiation as the US President threatens a 200% tariff on medicines. And full strength, Queensland and New South Wales teams vying for State of Origin glory in front of a sellout crowd in Sydney. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Ros Childs. Israel's Prime Minister says he won't back down from his goals in the war in Gaza as the US Middle East envoy says he's hopeful a 60-day ceasefire between Israel and Hamas could be reached by the end of this week. Benjamin Netanyahu has met one-to-one with the US President in the Oval Office while indirect negotiations continue in Qatar. It comes as the Israeli Defense has reported IDF to prepare plan to move 600,000 Palestinians and eventually the entire population into a camp on the ruins of the southern city of Rafah. Benjamin Netanyahu has again insisted that the war won't end until Israel achieves its stated aims.
We have still to finish the job in Gaza, release hostages, eliminate and destroy Hamas.
Africa News. The news.
DW documentary.
This is DW News, and these are our top stories. The U.S. Middle East Special Envoy has said that a deal for a 60-day truce in Gaza could be reached by the end of this week. Steve Witkoff made the comments at a cabinet meeting after President Donald Trump hosted Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington. Mediator Qatar has warned, however, that time is needed to secure a ceasefire agreement. Donald Trump says the U.S. must send more weapons to Ukraine. The U.S. president said Ukrainians have to be able to defend themselves after the latest Russian attack killed 11 civilians. Trump's comments come just days after the Pentagon announced it would hold back on delivering certain weapons to Kyiv. Kenya's National Commission on Human Rights says it now believes that more than 30 people died in nationwide anti-government demonstrations on Monday. Police reportedly opened fire at a charging crowd of protesters in Nairobi following a tense standoff. The demonstrations marked the 35th anniversary of the bloody Saba Saba uprising. That's when Kenyans demanded a return to democracy. This is DW News in Berlin. You'll find out more online at dw.com.
Hello, good morning. It's 6 o'clock on today's programme. We see how organised criminal gangs are making small fortunes, dumping waste on Britain's countryside.
Thus, after the banquet, now down to brass tracks. President Macron and Sir Keir Starmer meet to hash out a Channel migrants deal.
It's Wednesday, the 9th of July, coming up. The £1 billion a year problem of illegal waste. We trace one flight of its site back to a group allegedly making huge amounts of money from crime. A signature state banquet for President Macron and a King's speech on the need for cross-channel cooperation. Meeting with President Trump and Israel's Prime Minister last night as ceasefire negotiations boiled down to just one issue. And the Lionesses prepare to defend the Euro title at a must-win match against the Netherlands. Good morning, everyone. Well, waste crime is a booming problem in the UK. The Environment Agency.
Westminster, the ultimate clique, and you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Military Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. Okay, let me ask you a straight question. Straight issue. Next, legal immersion or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then. Yeah, as I said. Now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show. That's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30. News channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Emmanuel Macron has blamed Sir Keir Starmer for the migrant crisis.
Well, the French president is pressurising the Prime Minister to make Britain less attractive to channel migrants, urging tougher rules on jobs to deter cross-sins.
Well, as President Macron's state visit enters its second day, will all and pageantry be enough to strengthen the Anglo-French relationship?
A night of royal sparkle and autumn cordial, the King welcomes President Macron to a state banquet, taking the opportunity to highlight some of the challenges the countries face.
Our security services and police will go further still to protect us against the crime, cyber attacks, and of course irregular migration across the English Channel.
The state's visit continues here in Windsor. A magnificent state banquet last night. This morning, the President and the First Lady will pay their respects at the tomb of Queen Elizabeth II. More details shortly.
Publicly finds the Housing Post Office scandal drove at least 13 people to suicide, with a 160-page report laying bare the full scale of the horror.
The Infected Blood report exposes the devastating impact of compensation delays and what's been called the NHS's worst ever. Collaboration over the wind, looking ahead to see what is in store.
Good morning, Parliament has been established an independent football regulator, but opted against an amendment to make 10 Premier League matches available on free-to-air channels. And with 5 weeks to go until the start of the season, could Jamie Vardy be on his way to Old Trafford? We'll have more later this hour.
A little more cloud around, but for most of sunny spells, a little warmer than yesterday. Yeah. As a week forecast.
So, good morning. Hi, watching wherever you're listening. Welcome to the show. I'm Eamon Holmes.
I'm Miriam Case, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Are on France 24. Liberté, égalité, actualité.
Hello and a very warm welcome. If you're just joining us, you're watching Daybreak. These are the headlines. France's second largest city smothered by smoke as wildfires force people to stay indoors, and the temporary closure of Marseille's airport. The response to arrest warrants issued by the International Criminal Court accusing 2 Taliban leaders of crimes against humanity due to their persecution of women in Afghanistan. France and Britain will save Europe, so says Emmanuel Macron. The address country face of a world. But as well, also during that visit, Macron has also announced that France will be lending the famous Bayeux tapestry to the United Kingdom for a number of months. It is set to go on display at the British Museum from September of next year.
This is Asia Now.
Singapore 30 this hour. Prime Minister has stronger inter-ASEAN trade as U.S. tariffs take center stage at the bloc's foreign ministers meeting in Kuala Lumpur. Malaysia also urging a market to create a conducive environment for elections. U.S. President Donald Trump teases major trade announcements at each country. It remains unclear if these are new deals or tariffs.
Governor of Texas, more than 100 dead.
Enough is enough. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has criticized a new wave of tariffs US President Trump has threatened to impose on a number of countries. As the only sub-Saharan country on the list, South Africa could be hit with 30% tariffs on its exports to the US from 1st of August. The presidential office noted that the 30% tariffs are not an accurate representation of available trade data. Ramaphosa pointed out that in turn, South Africa imposes far lower or no tariffs on US imports. According to the press release, South Africa's negotiation teams will continue to engage with Washington to improve the trade relationship. Overall ties between Washington and Pretoria have experienced severe strains since Trump returned to office, with a meeting between Ramaphosa and his American counterpart in May doing little to improve the situation.
Egyptian officials reported on Tuesday that a fire engulfing a major telecom company building in downtown Cairo the previous day resulted in 4 fatalities and over 24 injuries. The significant blaze, which erupted at the iconic 10-story Telecom Egypt building and persisted for several hours, originated in one of the halls on the floor designated for telecom operators and spread to other levels due to its severity, according to authorities. The 4 deceased were employees of the company who were present in the burning structure, as stated by their workers' union. As of Tuesday afternoon, the Health Ministry provided an update indicating that 27 individuals had been hospitalized, although some have since been released. The ministry confirmed that 4 bodies were retrieved from the scene. Multi-companies, Orange and MTN, failures related to service quality, as announced by ART in a statement shared with the press on Monday. According to ART, inspections conducted in April and May 2024 revealed serious deficiencies, including coverage rates below the threshold required in the specification of both operators. The agency also criticized Orange Cameroon for malfunction in the prescribing from certain services, which result in a clear violation of consumer rights. In May 2023, operators active in the Cameroonian market were fined approximately 9.15 million euros for similar violations.
Big crowds are back at the Temple of Heaven in Beijing as China expands visa-free travel once again to boost tourism revenue. Starting July 16th, a total of 74 countries will be able to travel without visa.
It really helps people to travel because visa is such a hassle to apply always for the visa and to go through the process. And once you don't have all this process, then you can just travel easier because there is also flights from Georgia, China, and this really helps. And look
the coast. A total revenue in the pre-pandemic period, we've seen a roughly 50% increase in terms of the number of travelers, the number of tour groups booked, and overall spending.
So we're optimistic.
所以我们还是蛮乐观的，就是
This visa policy has been extremely favorable for us, and we hope these benefits will
持
continue.
续保持这个签证利好。
With most tourists from the global north now able to travel visa-free to China, no African country has been granted despite efforts by China to increase its presence in Africa.
The point is dropped. Former star player of Paris Saint-Germain, Kylian Mbappé, has dropped a criminal complaint he filed against his old club for moral harm made. Complaint was treat PSG at the beginning of the 2023-2024 season, when he was apparently sidelined from several activities of the club. The season continued to be marked by tense between the player and his club. Mbappé then joined